Welcome back to the Voice of Business podcast. We're here at Bennett's Furniture and Mattresses. Big thanks to them for sponsoring this, and to Phil Joliker, the marketing guy, for shooting today's episode. My guest today, we've got Jeff Day, President and CEO of Quickmill. Jeff, can you give us a bit of an overview of what you do? Your company's been in business here in Peterborough for 40 years now in the CNC business. Tell us a bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, glad to, Joel, and pleased to be part of this. We've had 40 years of success in Peterborough. We build large-size gantry CNC machines, which most people don't even know what that is. But CNC, by definition, is computer numerical controlled milling machine. These range in size from roughly 3 meters wide to 6 meters long table. So you can imagine the type of work we would manufacture on those machines. We target between 12 and 18 machines a year. They're distributed globally, mainly to the U.S. In the southern horseshoe for the oil and gas sector.
Yep.
A small percentage goes to Canada, mostly again to the oil sector in Edmonton, and another smaller percentage again to Saudi Arabia and the Middle East.
Yeah.
We employ 45 to close to 50 people now, which has grown quite a bit in the last 2 years. It was around 40. So initially, for the first 35 years of the company, it really focused on the oil and gas industry, and obviously that runs its cycle. Like we're not saturated by any stretch, but
there's a lot of boom and bust over the years. Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, we recognized the need to branch out to different sectors. We've now gotten more involved in the SMRs, which is the latest in energy development.
Yep.
And we're highly partnered with a few different companies in the States again. There's another sector. It's called FSW. It's friction stir welding. It's a relatively unventured process that, without getting into the science of it, it fuses two similar metals together, far stronger than traditional welding. So, anyways, fantastic, and it's growth has just continued to go.
Yeah. Now, growth continues to grow. We're heading into some interesting times, and so let's just jump right in on the tariff stuff. You say you're exporting a significant amount to the U.S. and the rest around the world, but I'm assuming you're also importing raw materials. What's most being affected for you?
As you can tell by my look, I'm quite heavily jet lagged. I just got back from Taiwan on this exact point. There's roughly 3,000 to 4,000 components go into our machines, and 90% of them are purchased outside of Canada.
Yeah.
There's a small portion comes from the States, fairly expensive items that's part of the Taiwanese possible avenue to find a different supply chain. But the tariff thing, this couldn't, like the way Quickmill is structured, it is absolutely devastating. It's basically redirected our entire strategy. We had intended to go a certain direction. This one now is forcing me to go into an entirely different purchasing strategy than we had initially intended. And the really upsetting part about it is the outcome of this will be additional Canadian jobs removed, because in order to stay competitive, we will have no choice but to find low cost components that we weren't necessarily forced into in the past.
Yeah, no, it's completely upsetting all of those supply chains and plans, right?
Yeah.
And you're focused on salvaging some of that stuff rather than growing other areas, which I'm sure you'd rather be focused on instead.
Yeah, one thing about Quickmill is it prided itself on quality for the 40 years in existence. So we can't buy cheaper, low-cost components and jeopardize quality.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is, but currently the current path is to go to Taiwan. 3 weeks ago, I was in India. So we're looking at different strategies for manufacturing, different strategies for purchasing, and ultimately the possibility of having to manufacture in the States, which is not an easy move for a company like Quickmill, and I'll explain that as we get further into the questions.
Sure, yeah. Well, and right now it seems like everybody wants to help businesses that are going through this. And what kinds of things would help from whether we're talking federal, provincial, local government directly on this, or just to help businesses like yours through these challenging times?
I've been giving this a lot of thought, and you know, everyone will default to funding's great. Funding is great, but it's got limited time span. The reality is just for the sake of round numbers, I'll just tell you, when something crosses the border, it's a roughly $800,000 machine. Put a 25% tariff on that, it's a large ticket. There is no funding that's going to be able to sustain that type of delta in cost. So what the government can do, I mean, they can help the short term by giving tax rebates or tax relief on tariffs that are paid. But the reality is, if they can help us with resources that we wouldn't typically need, like the focus now is going to be purchasing and possibly manpower retention. That's a kind of structure that a small company like ours doesn't typically have a strong hold on. So really, funding for employees would be very, very helpful. And obviously, the net gain of that is more employment within the country.
Yeah. And you guys pride yourselves on being a Canadian company. You got your patch on your arm.
I could have worn a nicer shirt, but this one's very relevant to the topic. So
Yeah. And what has been the advantage to being here in Canada versus somewhere else, and where do you see that going?
Well, historically, the FX value between the U.S. dollar and Canadian dollar has greatly aided us over time. Quickmill specifically is essentially it's a building with IP and human resources in it. It's not the kind of company you can unplug the machines and move them. Like we build machines. We don't have machines to build machines. We have people to build machines and engineers to design them. So it's a very difficult company to displace, to move to another spot. So the advantage of being in Canada, to answer your question, is Canadians, as a general rule, they're very innovative. And I think that's been the secret, or that's been the secret sauce for the company for the last 30, 40 years. And in order to get through something like this, that's just going to have to go to a different, a next level. So.
Well, and it's hard to when you've got employees of those skill levels, right? Like that's a tough thing to attract new and that too. You're in a very high tech, high precision environment. Where does AI and changing technology fit in?
Honestly, AI is something we've been talking about way prior to the tariff thing. It's something we know we've got to do. We've been working with McMaster University for the last 3 years on a similar project, not AI, but basically predictive maintenance. There is an AI aspect that can go into the CNC portion of our brains of our machines that absolutely is on the strategy. It's truly in the strategy phases right now. There's no set plan. But we know that, again, back to the innovation topic, it's necessary, in order to stay current and stay competitive.
Yeah, and going back to everything that's going on in the world, ideally you're looking for opportunities in this, right? Like we're hopefully not just riding it out and hoping for the best at the end. What kinds of things are you doing? What sort of decisions, what sort of investments to make it so that Quickmill will be stronger in the long term, more resilient because there's always, there always seems to be a next challenge. We had a big recession a number of years ago. We've had COVID. We've had, there's always something disrupting the world. And it seems like the companies that have been here for 40 years are the ones that when times get tough, they find opportunity.
You know what, again, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is it's a very relevant term. This one being 100% financial, it will strengthen us for sure. But it's going to be the most challenging thing that Quickmill has ever been through, because there's a direct hit the minute it crosses that border. Now, before we started the interview, I was telling you about an incident yesterday. We shipped machines across the border, and prior to March 2nd, there was an announcement that the initial date was March 2nd. There was an announcement made that they're going to push it out to April 2nd. We had a machine complete, ready to ship. It shipped on March 3rd. We shipped it across, fully intending that it would bypass a tariff. Yesterday got a bill. That tariff was in place from March 2nd to March 7th. And it was turned on and turned off again. So we took a $120,000 US hit on that particular machine. That is more profit than that machine could have ever made.
Yeah.
So we have, like, there's nothing we could have done about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing, no way to avoid it.
Yeah.
But we have got to figure out a better, a more effective strategy than just waiting for it to ride itself out.
Yeah.
On the possibility that there's many opinions that things going to be short-lived.
Yeah.
Which I'm really obviously hoping is the case, but we can't rely on that. So
yeah.
Again, it goes back to purchasing strategy and internal efficiencies.
And where do all the global opportunities fit in? I mean, America, it's so close by. You can put something on a truck and within 20 hours, you can get to millions upon millions of people, this massive market. Yeah. And compared to, like you said, you're in Taiwan, India, and maybe some of those are the inputs as well, but like we're looking outside of the U.S. for these opportunities, but I mean, it's so close and it's so large.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. Canadians are going to have to redirect their sales direction. That's not as easy as it sounds. Like you can't just say, okay, I'm going to start dealing with the oil and gas sector in Europe. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't know that, to be honest with you. Like we actively seek sales in Saudi Arabia, and they're growing quite nicely, and we have a very good reputation over there. Yeah. But it represents a very small percentage of our business. Yeah. Canada, I believe, in the very near future, will take oil and gas a bit more serious than it has in the past 7 or 8 years. Yeah. So that will be a small spike in Canada, but realistically, it's a small spike. Yeah. We make, like I said, 12 to 20 machines a year, and 75% of them go to the U.S. Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that one.
All right. Well, let's try and close off with, is there any silver linings in all of this?
Honestly, there are absolutely zero silver linings in this whatsoever. Like, if there's the one glimmer, it'll strengthen us on a united standpoint, because it certainly has for Canada. Yeah. But in the end of the day, that doesn't pay the bills. Yeah. We've got to, rethink, re-strategize, and not quit. That's one thing that I will not do. Yeah. Is back off or quit. Nope, it's about pivoting and redirecting and moving forward as best as we can and hope to ride out the storm.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.